So starting off with this guy. Now, he is not standing straight like my pencil would be, right? To kind of visualize what he's going or how he's going to look like on our paper. He's roughly going to be like this, okay? So his head should be drawn somewhere around here, right? And then his body is going to go kind of like a curve a little bit, right? Okay, so go ahead and we're going to draw his head first. His head is straight, vertical, but he's not looking straight at us. So draw the oval, right, for the head. Remember not to draw it too big or too small. So draw the first head. And then remember how we have 7 to 8 heads on average we are? That's how tall we are. So you get the option of whether you want to draw him 8 heads tall or 7 heads tall. If you draw him 7 heads tall, that just means you shrink or you bring in the legs, the arms a little bit. Same thing with the upper body as well. All right, so next step is the spine. Come in, Alejandro. Next step is the spine, right? So if you look at the image, you see it curve down like this, right? So let's go ahead and draw that curve. Oh, you know what I didn't do? What did I forget to do before I drew the spine? That too. One other thing though, Donovan. How do I know how far down to go? True, but how do I know? Count the number of heads, right, Elizabeth? I think that's what you're referring to. So remember, I need to count the number of heads to know how far down his feet are going to go, right? So measure the head, right, with your pencil, like I showed you, the top of the eraser to the bottom of the head, and then pinch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to do 7 this time. And notice how when I was counting, I was curving it because that's kind of what his body's doing. So I'm just keeping that. Maybe I curved it too much over here. If you notice his legs don't like go up there, kind of go more over here. So somewhere around this general area, right? And I'm going to extend his spine just a little bit because that's more of the halfway mark. Okay, so head, count, and then what I'm going to do now what Donovan suggested, right? He's looking to the left a little bit, not completely. So that center line curves this way. And his eyes go this way. So that gives us the look that we want. Looking to the left a little bit and looking straight. Right? Now, which direction are his hips? Is one higher than the other? Are they level? What do you guys think? So if you grab your pencil and line it up with the picture on his hips, you should be able to tell. Yep, Melanie, left side is higher, slightly higher, right? And that's probably because that leg with his knee is up higher. Well, do you mean, Donovan, his right? His right would be this side, if that's what you're referring to. Okay, yeah. So his right hip is slightly higher. Again, it's because this knee is higher than this one. Okay, so just tilt it down a little bit. All right, and now go ahead and do the shoulders. These shoulders are opposite, right? The right side is a little higher. Okay, and now go ahead. So we're not going to be drawing the steps in there. So he's going to kind of look like he's floating a little bit right now. Okay, so arms and legs. So I'm going to draw the circles for the hips. I'm going to be doing the stick figure fairly fast because I want to move on to the the muscles. And since we've already practiced the stick figure a lot, I'm gonna assume, is it okay for me to assume that you guys are good with it? So elbow, hand, and bring this elbow up a little higher. And you don't see the other arm, so I'm not going to draw it. So this is what your stick figure should look like. All right. And then don't forget the upper cavity, the chest cavity, and the pelvic cavity. Remember, I'm not drawing the left arm over here because we can't see it in the picture. So once you do the upper cavity and the pelvic cavity, go ahead and add the muscles, right? The muscles are pretty, I think they're the easiest ones, because all you do, since you already have the stick figure, you just wrap the muscles around it. Just like I showed you before. What I do want you to keep in mind is the angle in which we're looking at them, and whether that will show you more muscles on one side than it does on the other. So for example, for the calf muscle, if you notice I drew this calf bigger than this one. Well, if you look at the picture of him, this calf on the left, you'll be able to see more of it, which is why I made it bigger on the on this side, on the right side. Okay. All right, and then we have the hamstring, or the quads, sorry. Notice how I drew the one on the left leg bigger, because in the picture it looks bigger. And in this case though, unlike when we did ours, you can't make them bigger, have bigger muscles than he actually does, because we're drawing it obviously from looking at his picture, right? There's the general muscle stick figure drawing. If he wasn't wearing that coat or this blazer, we kind of be able to see a little bit of his upper arm, right? So I'm just drawing it in there, just lightly, just to give you an idea of where it would be, right? And so his elbow would be down here. Okay. We'll call this guy, this person, male or model number 1, because there's going to be more than one. Cool? That wasn't too hard, right? Hardest part is doing the stick figure, and then all you do is just lay the muscles on top of it. Okay? All right, I'm going to do one with you again so that you can see it, and then the next one you won't be able to see what I'm drawing. Okay? All right, you guys ready for the second one? The second drawing, or the second pose? All right, here we go. People in front of me, you guys good? Can I go to the next pose? Yeah? All right, so the next pose is this one. So similar to the first one, right? But this one is more of a side view as opposed to this one where we can see more of the front of him. With her upper body is slightly turned towards us. We can see the shoulders here. The hips, if you notice, you can't see the other side of her hips, so we just see this part right here. Okay, but very similar to this stick figure. with muscles, right? The only difference is if you look at the shoulders here and her shoulders, but when we draw her, her shoulders are going to be way less, more narrow. Same thing with the hips, because we won't be able to see all of this on her. Okay? All right, so start with her head again. Same thing. Don't draw it too close to the first person. Let's do it over to the right over here. I'm going to move it up a little bit too. So draw the first head. And just like Lizbeth mentioned for the last model. All right, measure out the head size. So measure it, right? The top of the eraser to the bottom of the eraser, or the bottom of the head. Pinch. And I'm going to do 7 heads tall for her, because I think I did 7 heads for him as well. I'm just going to continue it. And I'm going to, when I count them, I'm going to go this way, because that's the way she's kind of leaning in the picture. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so she's going to end up around here. Okay. All right. Spine. If you notice, just curves this way. Sorry, guys. There we go. So it curves, almost like she's slouching a little bit, which she is in the picture. Notice how that curve is greater down here. She's a little straight here, and then comes down. So curves more at the base. Cool. Oh, let's do what Donovan suggested. She's looking at us, right? But her head is rotated. So that center line is actually, instead of curving to the left like we did on the other model, her line is curving to the right because she's towards us. All right, so it's curving to the right, that vertical line. And then that horizontal line is almost straight because she's kind of looking, well, her head is tilted up a bit actually. If you look, it's tilted up a little bit. So I'm just going to tilt that curved line a little bit. All right. So she's looking towards us and her head is slightly tilted up. So you see how you can see her chin and underneath her chin a bit? That's how we can tell. All right, let's do the hips and the shoulders. So this is tricky because we can't see both shoulders and we can't see both hips. So therefore, you draw it shorter, way shorter, almost like half the size. So I'm gonna do shoulders first. That's how big her shoulders are, or wide her shoulders are. And her hips are going to be smaller than that, right? Because typically our shoulders are wider than our hips. So again, shoulders are super narrow, and same with the hips. Not because she has super narrow hips or shoulders, but because of the angle in which she's looking at us. All right. I'm gonna actually go ahead and put the pelvic and upper cavity right now in place. And her right hip, even though we can't really see it as well, her right hip, this one, is higher because this leg is raised up and the other one is just straight down. Okay? And I would say both her shoulders are equally balanced. If you notice her elbow, this one is high up, resting on the bench. And if you notice this back here, I think that's her other shoulder / elbow, resting on the bench as well. So that's how I know that her shoulders are even. Okay. Let me go ahead and, so for her upper body cavity, we're gonna almost draw it like this. Instead of drawing it like this one, this is how you draw it if you just see more of the side than you can more of the front, like where her chest is, right? So we can only see one of these instead of both, which is why I drew it like that. Okay? And I'm gonna draw the front, or the left side of this, a little more bulgy at the front, Again, to show that the chest is facing us and popping out more. Okay. So almost looks like a bean. Like a lima bean, because they're like big, right? Okay, now let's go ahead and do the legs. Legs and the arms. Remember, this is the last one when I'm going to show you how I'm drawing it. This next one, that you're going to be doing it without looking at my drawing. Remember that hopefully you guys are looking at landmarks. So both knees are very similar in the same spot, except for the one behind it is it's lower and underneath it, okay? Or behind it, if you will. And that other leg is just extended. And further out. All right, so there's my stick figure. And then add muscles. And again, keep in mind which legs or which muscles you're making bigger. Remember, I didn't draw the other arm because I don't see it, right? And this we're gonna do model number 2. Okay. So both of the two we've done right now are sitting down and almost extended, right? And yes, they look like they're kind of floating because we didn't draw the stuff that they're sitting down on. I don't want you to worry too much on it or about it. I'm sorry. Because I want you to focus more on their bodies. All right? All right. I hope the muscle part, since no one is saying anything, I'm hoping that you guys aren't having a hard time with it. The only time you'd have a hard time with it is if your stick figure is way off, then your muscles are going to be way off, right? So getting that stick figure down is probably the most important part. Okay? All right, third model. Here we go. Make it a little more difficult. She is the left leg over here is high up, right? Notice where her knee is at compared to her chest and her stomach. Right, so her waist is right here, okay, way high up on the left because that left leg is way high, okay. Now, shoulders, the right one is higher because that arm is higher. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to draw her over here on the right side. Let me bring this up. There we go. So draw the head first. So her head is straight. So when you draw the head, oops, I'm going to, that's fine right there. I think it's too far to the right. I'm going to end up cutting her right arm. So I'm going to move it to the left a little bit. So draw the head first, all right? And then measure 7 to 8 heads. At this point, I'm leaving it up to you whether you want to make your people 7 heads tall or 8 heads tall. Okay? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is how tall she's going to be on my paper, right? And now let's go ahead and do the spine. Which direction is her spine curving towards? Is it straight down Is it curving to the left, or is it curving to the right? It is curving to the right, this way. You can kind of see her that line on her abs, kind of. It comes on this side and then it curves a little bit this way, right? So especially the bottom portion of her spine curves more, right? So curves like this. Remember not to make it too curved like we did for the other two people, or else they're gonna look she's gonna look super bent, right? All right, and now her hips, right? The left side is way higher up, and her shoulders a little higher on the right. Okay. And then go ahead and do her leg. So her right leg isn't straight down. This would be straight down. Her right leg sticks out a little bit to the right and then comes straight down. So a little bit to the right and straight down. And then her toes are pointed at us on the right side. So make sure you're drawing her toes pointed at us. Okay. And now her left leg. So from here, if you look at her hip is here, her knee is up here, right? So it almost looks like it's shortened right here, right? So it's gonna go, that's too angled. A little less. And it's going to go higher up here. And then notice where her foot is at. I would say it's right above, I think her knee is here. So that foot is a little higher up than the other knee. So if you notice now, if I were to draw the foot here, this looks odd. Why? Well, because the space here between this foot and this leg is not that big, but if you look at my paper, it's huge. So I need to fix that. That means I made the hips a little too wide and a little too angled. Okay? So again, hip, and then leg up or knee up this way, not too extended out. So it's more almost, before I draw it, here's her hip, her upper leg almost goes super high up, but not angled this way. It's more straight up. So it's more like this. Okay. Now her knee is here. And now I can bring it down here. And that looks better, more accurate compared to the picture. Okay. So see how this position here of her in this yoga pose, or whatever she's practicing, now that looks more accurate. All right, her arms. It almost looks like her arm is curving, which her forearm is right here. Her forearm is shorter, by the way, than her upper arm. And her hand is almost lined up with her face. So you see that? So that's why maybe make it a little higher. So if you're having a harder time with this one, you should be. You notice how many times I've erased or had to fix things? Making those mistakes is fine. That's why we're doing this. And figuring out how to correct them is also important. So the way I figure out whether I'm doing things right, I'm always looking at the picture. And then I'm using landmarks. So her hand is lined up with her face, right? So I need to make sure that mine is lined up with her face on here, okay? So using those landmarks is important. And then the other hand, in the picture, notice how it's higher up. So the other hand right now when we draw, or the other arm, should be angled more going up than the other one. And then her right arm, or right hand over here, is more of a fist. So remember how we draw the fist? It's almost like a curved cone, just to show that it's more of a fist than an open hand. I'm gonna straighten this one out a little bit more. It doesn't look as accurate. There. Okay, so now go ahead and add the muscles, upper cavity. And the right side of the upper cavity is a little higher. We would be able to see more of her calves in the on the left leg over here, because it's bent, so causing that calf muscle to flex. You won't really draw the quads on the left side because we can't see them. And then her upper arm muscles as well. So her muscles are definitely bigger than the previous models, so that's why I'm making them bigger in my drawing. Okay. And now she's looking to the left, so that vertical line curves to the left, and she's looking fairly straight. I'm just going to curve it just a little bit. There we go. I'm just going to put exercise model, because I'm not sure if she's doing yoga, Tai Chi, or something else. So she's exercising. All right, three drawings. So I did these faster than when we did the stick figures, because I think everyone should be comfortable now with the stick figure, and all we're really focusing on are more the muscles than anything, right? And what I'm doing also is making it more difficult each model we do, or each drawing we do. So this next one is going to be more difficult as well, okay? And then this next one, you guys are going to do it without looking at my drawing, and while I'm drawing it. I'll show it to you at the end, but I don't want you to look at my drawing. I want you to look at the actual picture that we're drawing from, or the person that we're drawing. Right? Okay, so going along with the same theme of exercising, I also found him, and he's even more twisted than she is, right? So a few things. He's crossing his body with his arms and his legs, so that's another reason why I chose this one, because it has those levels of difficulty, right? Okay, so his head, notice how it's tucked down, right? Which means his spine is going to be curving a lot. So his spine is right here. It's curving, right? So his head is turned, and his spine comes out of the bottom of his head, right? And then it curves in, right? So he's hunched over a little bit, which means he's going to be shorter. So make sure when you draw his head and then you measure it, you measure 7 heads for sure. Don't measure 8. Okay, so start. Let me cover what I'm drawing. So start by drawing his head, right? And draw it like this. And then it's almost gonna be that vertical line is really close to the edge of the face. Right? So draw head and then measure the head. and measure 7 heads tall. You for sure want to do 7 and not 8 because he's hunched over. And so he's definitely looks shorter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So make the mark where his 7th head is at. Draw the vertical line going through his face, which would be this one. All right. And then the horizontal line curves down a little bit because his head is tilted a little bit down. Okay. Okay, the spine. Spine goes from here and curves this way. Okay. And so this, for this one, his spine, it will actually be shorter than the other ones we've been drawing. Okay. And now his hips. The left hip is higher. It's almost higher than the other lady we were doing, the other model. Okay. So when you draw his shoulders, they're actually going to be touching his head, because again, his neck is tucked in, right? So his shoulders and his head. So when I'm drawing his shoulders right now, and he will be right over the shoulder line. Okay? Or if you want, just put the shoulder line right at the base of his chin, this way. Okay. All right. So hips, shoulders. And now go ahead and draw the arms and the legs. Notice how this right arm crosses. So his elbow is right on his chest, it looks like. So draw the arms and then the legs. His knee. This left knee is touching his forearm. So be aware of that when you're drawing it. And then the right leg comes in. Not straight down, it comes in. Right? And then add muscles. So this guy's pretty lean. But he does have muscles. Right? And don't forget the upper cavity and pelvic cavity. Okay, so here's what it should look like with the muscles and stick figure. Oh, you know what? This is off. This foot should be touching this leg, just like it is in the picture. Like that. Okay. I'm just going to put model number 4 on this one. Right? So notice where I put his shoulders right there compared to his head, right? All right. Ready for the next one? Oh, here's what I want you to do on, actually before we start, the next one. Okay, I'll give you some more time. So what you can do, those of you that are waiting, so that you can see, here, we'll do it on the first one. I'm going to just lay skin on top of this one, over the muscles, like I showed you. And then what I'm going to do is erase the muscles on the inside so that only the outline of our skin shows up on our person, and you should be able to see things a little better. So I'm going to show you that right now. So I added the skin. This is too big. Made them too wide. So I'm going to bring this in. There, that's probably better right there. Okay. And then all I'm going to do is erase the inside so you can get a better idea of what it looks like with just the skin and the outline of the body. I would use my pencil eraser, but it's pretty low, so I'm just using this one. Right? You can get the idea of how that body looks like with just the outline of him. See that? And then that looks accurate, right? Okay, we're going to do one more model. Here we go. And again, you are going to not look at my drawing as I'm doing it. So he's definitely more difficult. Well, only because his hips are down here. Okay, actually, let's see what's the next one. Actually, let's do this one instead of, or which one do you guys want to do? The one, this, number 1 or number 2? Number 2? All right, let's do number 2. It is a little easier, and it's actually, I think, more funny. It's like serious look. All right, so let's just do this one. Sorry, Donovan. Someone in front spoke first. All right, so draw his head. Right, this way. Make him 7 heads long as well, because he is sitting down and he's kind of shortened a little bit. All right, so draw the head. Oops, sorry, I'm going to hide my drawing. And notice how he's looking at us, but his head is tilted to the right. So that vertical line is curving to the left this way. And the horizontal line is curving up just a tiny bit. His head is tilted just a little up. Okay. Spine, pretty easy like the last one, right? You can kind of see with his vest that line and this tie. So it goes this way. Before you draw the spine though, measure 7 heads. So measure your first head on your drawing with your pencil, and then count 7. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, you might want to do, when you measure it, go out to here. Measure 7 heads this way, not just straight down. Okay? Because technically his hips are going to be touching the floor, or they are touching the floor, just like in the picture. So that's why you want to, when you count 7 heads this way. So the 4th head should be the ground. Okay? All right. Now go ahead and draw the spine. So the spine is technically going to go all the way to the ground, curving. Hips, like this. They're facing us. We can see both. the right one and the left one. Right, so hips are angled a lot. Shoulders are angled the same direction as well, just not as much as the hips are. Okay. And then go ahead and draw the limbs in the upper cavity. And this one will be the last one we do with muscles. So if you look at the right leg, it goes this way, so it's hugging the floor. And notice how high up this knee goes. It's at his chest. So make sure that when you draw his knee, it's lined up with the chest. And try and have the same angle of his upper leg. All right, once you do the stick figure, go ahead and add the muscles. And I'm going to label this one model number 5. All right, so it should look like something like this, all right, with model number 5.